Hi, this is Howard Merton, President of the Federation of Defense and Corporate Counsel. I'd like to welcome you to Fed Speaks, a podcast series bringing you relevant and substantive information through interviews with thought leaders and experts from the legal, insurance, and corporate world. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's give it a listen.
Welcome to Fed Speaks, the podcast channel of the Federation of Defense and Corporate Counsel. You're listening to Mondays with Mills, and I'm your host, Mills Gallivan. Thank you for joining us today, and if you would like to be notified of new episodes, then please subscribe to Fed Speaks wherever you listen to podcasts. Today, our guest on Mondays with Mills is Federation member and past president Gene Lawler, who is the owner of LADR, or Lawler ADR Services. Today's podcast is brought to you by the FDCC's Alternative Dispute Resolution section. Gene is a past president of the FDCC, having served in that capacity in 2004 to 2005. She obtained a BBA in finance from Loyola Marymount University and her JD from Loyola Law School. Gene is now a full-time mediator and arbitrator and CEO, CFO, COO, and marketing director of Lawler ADR Services, LLC. Before that, he was a senior partner in a Los Angeles-based litigation firm representing corporations, professionals, nonprofits, individuals, and insurers in a broad range of matters. She was an accomplished trial lawyer, and during her litigation practice, she mediated hundreds of cases. Gene has a deep knowledge of the insurance industry, insurance policies, and the various levels of risks they insure. Gene is now a certified and highly qualified mediator, and I would encourage you to visit her website, www.lawleradr.com, for a full review of her training, knowledge of ADR. I can assure you that you will find her resume to be impressive and instructional for what a qualified and preeminent mediator's resume looks like. Today, I want to talk to Gene about her transition from litigator to mediator, what it has meant professionally, how she has built a successful mediation practice, what she learned along the path, and where she's heading now. I promise our listeners that you'll learn something new today, and if you don't, I'll give you your money back. So, Gene, how are you doing?
Fine, thanks. It's nice to see you, Mel.
Well, it's good to see you. Our listeners can't see us, but we can see each other, which is a nice bonus. But
you're looking fine, right?
Well, you are as well. So, well, I know you're staying busy with your mediation practice, so thank you for carving out time to talk with me today. But let's start out and talk a little bit about the FDCC and tell me what keeps you coming back to the meetings, because you're a regular for sure.
That I am, although I must admit I have started missing some of the summer meetings occasionally. But, I just love the FDCC and I love the people and find it to feel like coming home every year. And it always made me feel like such a better lawyer when I was in practice and was leaving an FDCC meeting to come back. I was re-energized and excited about different things that, getting back to the office would mean. And I still find it that way, just in a different capacity now.
Absolutely. Well, I know in the post-COVID world, all of the bar organizations are working hard to provide a lot of value to the attendees. And it's important to demonstrate engagement and attend the meetings. But can you hit some of the highlights over the years of what it's meant to you just in terms of your business, particularly when you were a litigator? Just in terms of referrals, or did it pay off for you to attend all those meetings?
Sure. I would say that as it turned out, probably most of my business over the years ended up coming through FDCC connections, referrals, introductions, whatever. I mean, certainly work came from all kinds of places. But it did mean for the firm a lot of work and introductions, and it meant very satisfying work. So in terms of that, I would say that it made my practice to be so much better, so much more interesting, and it kept me very, very busy. So that was great in terms of the right. And then there's the intangibles.
I've always felt like when I got a referral from an FDCC that I wanted to make sure I did a really, really good job. So Tell me about how you made the decision to move from litigator to a full-time ADR provider. Had you planned that over a long period of time?
It had been in my mind for a long period of time. And in fact, after I got off the board as chairman of the board, that term ended in the summer of 2006. Then I signed up for Pepperdine's mediating the litigated case class and took that at the beginning of 2007, I guess it was. I just looked ahead and I really thought I might be able to start more of a mediation practice within the firm, but due to conflicts and just perception and the like, that out here in Los Angeles anyway, that just proved impossible. And I was too busy anyway with all my regular work. So otherwise, I would just say that it happened. I guess I'd been probably going down that road for a while. And as I said to my partners when I told them that I was going to retire from the firm at the end of 2016, one of the things I said, I used the phrase, life is too short. And I had other things that I wanted to do. And as much as I loved the law and loved being in the firm and all that, this was something I wanted to do before I got too old to take the time to get it started and then have the time to, practice and be an effective mediator.
Well, it looks like you'd made the jump in 2017, and so we're now about 5 years down the road. And looking back, what would you do differently, if anything?
I think I would not assume that I would be just automatically going into a panel of some sort. I mean, I have mediated so many cases during my practice. I called up Jams and said, "Oh, hi, I want you to know that, now I'm going to start mediating and so let's talk." And they were very kind and we did talk. But ultimately, as I learned after I talked to them and then to one other panel, the gist of it is we're not here to help you get your practice started. We're here to take you to the next level once you have your practice going. And maybe it's because I'm in a big city, Los Angeles. I don't know, but that was that. So I think I would have probably focused more on where and how to get the word out and get clients, and not just assume that all the people that said, "Oh, that's great, you'll be a great mediator, I'll be happy to use you," would actually be the ones who are using you, because they're not necessarily the ones who first came forward. And, so that kind of thing. Don't make assumptions. Remember that you are starting a new business, and keeping that in mind served me well.
Did you find that the FDCC relationships you'd made over the years were helpful?
Definitely.
So you've got, at least when I follow you and I see you, seems like everywhere, a really comprehensive marketing strategy. You've got your website, you've got plenty of written materials you can download, you're doing podcasts. How did you get all that pulled together?
Yeah. Kind of kicking and screaming, I got into the podcasts and the videos, I will admit. The video was like, oh no, a few years ago, no, I can't do that kind of thing. And who listens to podcasts anyway, But
hopefully a lot of people. I'm hoping a lot of people are listening.
Well, they do. I've learned that, and so basically I realized that there was this other social media side of marketing, and somehow was connected with Natalie Armstrong-Latan, who's an American married to a Frenchman living in Normandy, France, who does mediation, arbitration, dispute resolution marketing. And I talked to her, and she made sense to me, the social media marketing. And this was in 2019, I think, maybe the beginning, before the pandemic, but maybe early in 2020. So I said I would go for it. And I'm so grateful to her and to what has grown and developed in that way. The connections from LinkedIn are amazing. I have gotten business through that, and calls. And I mean, yesterday I was on a Zoom call with a Ukrainian mediator she and her husband are now in Dundee, Scotland. and was talking with her about actually being a guest speaker on the Will Work for Food, the New Possibilities Hour webinar that I co-moderate. But anyway, we said to each other, this is just amazing. We met each other on LinkedIn. Now here we are talking to each other. She's telling me about a group of mediators that have started something called Family Mediation in the Time of War. And it's dealing with the Ukrainian families that are separated or things like this. And Bruce Edwards, a famous mediator, a wonderful mediator, wonderful man who is up in Northern California, they're doing something also Ukrainian sense, because it's so long now that families have been hosting refugee families and all, and some disputes or, conflict can arise. Expectations and communications may be different. So there's just so much going on out there. It has really broadened my horizon to what's going on in the world. So that's a long answer to getting involved in social media, but it's certainly opened up a whole new world for me.
You've got an international practice now. I'm very impressed. So talk a little bit about Will Work for Food and how you got involved in that, what it is, and how it plays into your overall marketing strategy.
Well, first of all, I don't think of it as being involved with my marketing strategy. I know some people that I've called to speak on it have said that, oh, well, it's my, not necessarily mine, but their marketing strategy. I think of it as a way of giving back. Certainly, it helps with my marketing in the sense that a presence out there, a reason to be emailing people or, posting on LinkedIn, but that's not why I do it. And what really it is a way of giving back. And it came to me courtesy of Natalie, whom I had mentioned. She started this in the spring of 2020, about April or May, maybe at the beginning of the pandemic, in a way to help provide food for the hungry of the world. And there have been more than 3 million meals, of which we know from donations of which we know that have been served thanks to the greater legal community donating to food banks around the world.
Well, I think it as far as marketing, it goes to your brand as a genuine person who really cares about other people, and you just clearly express that. So that's neat. That is a really cool program. So good for you for getting involved. So tell me about the podcasting. How's that going? I need some tips. I need to figure out how to do this.
Well, thank you. I think you do very well for yourself, Mills. I suppose they say get the right a microphone, and make sure that it's all set up correctly. But again, that was one of the things to start for 2022, I think, is when I started doing these and coming up with the look and the feel and the touch, of the name, Roads to Resolution, Closure and Certainty. It may be a bit long, but that's what it is. What I really wanted to do at first, and what I still plan to do, is to interview women in particular, but in general, people who are trailblazers. And what I was really thinking of was the women who were the first, the first woman DRI president, a BOTA, the past presidents, if you will, there, and then branching out, but really trailblazers in whatever their field might be. And I'm going to get back to that. But
that's a super idea. That is wonderful. I promise not to steal it, but you need to.
Now that I've announced it to the world,
you're on the hook now. But I would really, I'd say go for it. That's a great idea. So
thanks. I'm really having fun doing those podcasts.
Yeah, they are a lot of fun. So that's awesome. So on those, you're clearly branching out into areas other than ADR, which again, shows your brand. You were a trailblazer, so you can start by interviewing yourself for sure.
I'll have one of my granddaughters interview me, maybe.
That might be good. A little scary, but might be good.
Yeah, I don't know about the 6-year-old, maybe, but okay, we can go with the 12-year-old.
yeah, go up the chain a little bit. So that's awesome. So, Gene, one question I wanted to ask you is kind of a follow-up, and it struck me when you were talking about the trailblazers, particularly the women, is in our neck of the woods, we don't see as many women and minorities as mediators. Tell me about the West Coast. I mean, broaden my horizons a little bit. What is the diversity on the West Coast of mediators?
Well, I have no exact statistics to provide to you on what it really is or it isn't. I would say the majority are probably men, but I'd say the women are probably pretty close. It is probably 40% maybe. I'm just guessing. It's pretty close to 50-50, I would assume.
Yeah, and I should have qualified my question a little bit in the sense that I know, at least in Greenville and in South Carolina, there are a broader diversity of women, particularly in the family court arena. I just don't go there, so I don't see them. I really was talking civil mediator. I see not enough. Hopefully that's changing. So tell me a little bit about what you enjoy most about mediating.
I love getting to know the people, and for the most part, there's always some that are not too happy about whatever the case might be, that's for sure, and they are not hesitant to express it. But I really get great satisfaction out of helping people find solutions, which I always did in practice and probably in life in general, to figure out solutions to whether they're problems or situations, and to let people then get on with their lives or their businesses, things like that.
And what do you think? You name one thing or one thing that you see consistently that keeps cases from settling?
That's a good one. Well, obviously not enough money. From the other is, I suppose, the easy answer. But why they didn't get to enough money or not enough money, why they didn't reach a number that they could have reached. At times I think it's where emotions get in the way and people aren't really listening and aren't willing to be thinking outside the box, to use a phrase, or they're just asking for too much money to begin with, or the defense side isn't prepared maybe, or the plaintiff side isn't prepared. Either one, to realistically evaluate the case and understand what it is. But I don't know, those kinds of things.
Kind of interesting too, particularly what mediation is doing to the world of trials, and I think that again is kind of regional. I know in our area we're not seeing nearly as many trials. On the other hand, I know, for instance, Clark Hudson seems to be in trial 365 days a year. So it's hard to say, but more and more I'm seeing lawyers say, "Well, I've decided I'm going to be a mediator," and which I think is interesting. I'm going, well, you better get with it. But what advice would you give to other FDCC members who might be considering a move to full-time ADR?
I would think, among other things, I would say, if that's what you want to do, go for it. It's a wonderful profession and it's very, very satisfying. Be prepared, though, to be able to support yourself on, whatever money you have in the bank or whatever your other sources of income might be while you get yourself situated. Keep in mind it's a business, and keep in mind that with all the years of experience you have in the trenches, handling cases, trying cases, settling cases, and all that, that you're really in a position to be able to do this job or this role as a mediator probably pretty well. Now, I'd say it all depends on your personality too. There's some people that no way, no how could they ever be a mediator. But if you're so inclined and thinking about it, you may very well, you probably do have that personality that you would need to be a good mediator. And it's something that I've really realized, you can do it as long as you have your mind about you and you're alive, you're here on this earth. So it's something that's an amazing thing for lawyers to be able to have a second career as such, that continues to give back, is satisfying, is a way of earning some money, all that, using the skill sets that you developed over the years.
I was talking about Arthur Brooks, who is a social economist, and his theme sort of is the art of happiness. He wrote a book on that. His current book is called Strength to Strength, and it's about kind of hitting your stride and looking for maybe something to do in the back end of your life. I hate to put it that way. But his thought was that up until about 55, we're acquiring knowledge and we're building our careers. And he's not talking about lawyers necessarily, but that after 55, you've got all this acquired knowledge, and most people shift to a shared knowledge concept. And it's very interesting, but you're talking about people thinking about this as a next step is, I thought, just kind of what made me think about it. But have you enjoyed this more than trying cases, do you think?
Yes, is a short answer. I love what I'm doing, and every now and then I have turned to Tim, my husband, at odd times. I'm just so happy. I just love what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I enjoy it as well. It is very satisfying for sure. Talk a little bit maybe about the practical side of it. Are you billing by the hour? Are you billing on a flat fee? Do you charge people if they cancel on you? Talk a little bit about the money side of what you're doing.
Here, it's generally flat fee. I know some do hourly, but my billing is a flat fee, and I bill for a full day or a half day. I'm actually changing my half day to be for 5 hours instead of 4 hours now, since it seems like you get to that 4 hour mark and everyone's just trying to hustle and hurry up now.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll go 5 hours now as a half day. And so those have their own rates. I also offer a what do I call it? A smaller value case rate, because so many cases are just little cases. And this really came about in part because an attorney at a major defense firm, a national firm, had a client that needed to resolve some UIM cases and all, and just, would you get involved? And so they were little cases. They could be handled, relatively quickly. And so I charge a lesser amount for those. And then also ADA cases are very big out here in California, New York also, but and so in some other states. And they involve such small amounts of money, and the people really don't have much money, although some defendants do, but certainly not well, maybe the plaintiffs do too, actually, at this point, depending on how often they've sued. But I charge a lower rate for that. I personally don't charge a cancellation. Well, I have not been charging a cancellation fee. Now I'm going to have a case manager starting November 1st, and she assures me that I should charge something. So at least what I pay her, I will be charging as the cancellation fee, so that I'm not out any money for
Yeah, well,
canceling.
that
But whatever.
makes ultimate sense. The cancellation fees I've really tried to stay away from in my own practice, unless I've got a repeat offender. Occasionally, I will do it. But
Yeah,
um,
it happens.
any
People need to reschedule, they settle. And so that's great. Keep me in mind for the next one, and they're happy to do that.
exactly. Any thoughts on what the FDCC might do to build more ADR programming and education, either on the advocacy side or for people that are interested in becoming mediators?
I think there's room for programs on both sides, actually. It would have been very helpful in becoming a mediator to have had some resources to go to through the FDCC. Would have been wonderful. But, there are the resources out there, but you pretty much have to find them. How do you do this? Setting up the business part of it, that aspect of it. And then in terms of mediation advocacy, I think that's huge. I think that because most cases settle anyway, that there is a wonderful opportunity for the Federation. I know that some other organizations are talking about doing things like this, but to focus on some sort of training or series of educational programs of some sort on mediation advocacy. It's different than when you're arguing a summary judgment motion, or you're at trial, or you're in a deposition, or you're just arguing with the other counsel trying to, whatever it is you might be trying to do. It's different.
Sure, you don't have that judge to decide it, so you've actually got to persuade your opponent to listen to you, which is can be challenging if people aren't prepared. But I think those are great points. So, any thoughts about where you think ADR will be in the next 10 years?
I think it's going to continue to grow exponentially. I think that you are going to find more and more and more of it being online. I'll bet that at least for civil litigation, that at least half, if not more, of the mediations tend to be online mediations over time. Now that we've learned how to do that, the cost benefits are very nice, and the convenience, et cetera. So I think that the online is not going to go away.
I tell you, the thing I love about online is having the decision makers there. I mean, so often an adjuster would just be available to their defense counsel, and now they're there with us for the whole day, and it makes a difference. I mean, they're much more involved. So I'm with
Absolutely.
you on that for sure.
I agree.
I'd like to kind of wrap up, but I wanted to ask you, if you were writing a letter to a 30-year-old Jean Lawler, what would you tell her about mediating an ADR versus litigation and career choices?
My 30-year-old me.
That would have been 2 years ago. That's all that is.
My 30-year-old me, mediation was just getting going. It wasn't even a thing like it is now. My father-in-law was a judge, a criminal judge, actually, and he retired from the bench in 1981. And he was going to start doing mediations. He unfortunately passed away before that really got going. But, this all started in the 1980s, and my 30-year-old me was in the 1980s. So what I would tell her, though, is, hey, you really don't need those, that blue wool suit with the bow tie thing, that you would find at Nordstrom's that made you feel so professional. Stick with it and just keep developing your knowledge and your information and your expertise, your connections. The connections are so important, the relationships that you build. Just build that and have a wonderfully satisfying legal career, ups and downs, of course, but do that. And then the mediation is there at the rainbow, maybe at the end of all those storms of litigation, but it's, it's there. Now I do see a lot more young people just starting out straight, going into mediation, and they're in their 20s and 30s, coming out of law school just to do mediation. So that's fine too. But for me, I would say I've gotten all the experience that I got. And for sure, when that FDCC nomination form lands on your desk, don't let it sit for a year like you let it sit. Get it filled out and let yourself get nominated and join. It'll be a wonderful experience for you and your family.
No doubt. Well, Jean, thanks so much for spending time with me today to talk about your mediation practice and marketing and all things FDCC. More importantly, thank you for all you do and have done for the FDCC and its members. I look forward to seeing you and Tim in Nashville with our friends from all places. To our listeners, please be sure to subscribe to Fed Speaks wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, please tell your friends, family, and colleagues to subscribe. Each week, we will be covering new topics that will help you to be a great lawyer, exceptional leader, and an even better person. Jean, thanks so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much, Mills. It's a pleasure always.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for presenting that podcast on behalf of the FDCC. It was great. We appreciate your sharing your time and knowledge with our members and other listeners. And for our listeners today, you've heard from us. Now let us hear from you. Send us your thoughts on this topic or on any topic you'd like the FDCC to address, and send those thoughts to fedspeaks@thefederation.org. Be sure to join us again for our next episode here at the FDCC, the inspired community of vetted defense counsel, exceptional leaders, and even better people. Thank you.